So this is solutions for Quick Quiz 11. And for number 1, we have 3x minus 3 over 4 is less than 6. Well, you know if you have absolute value smaller than 6, it means you have some number in the middle of an interval, and you want to go 6 one direction and 6 the other direction, and that's going to be the edges, and you want the absolute value to be smaller than that, so you want the distance away from the center to be smaller, so you know you want a piece of the number line, not two tails. So we either have negative 6 is less than 3x minus 3 over 4, which is less than 6, or you can write it as two separate inequalities. 3x minus 3 over 4 is less than 6. And you need the word and, 3x minus 3 over 4 is greater than negative 6. And some of you did this different ways, and that's fine. So let's multiply by 4 times 4 times 4. So negative 24 is smaller than 3x minus 3 is smaller than 24. Add 3, add 3, add 3, get negative 21 is less than 3x, which is less than 27, and then divide by 3, divide by 3, divide by 3. So you're going to get negative 7 is less than x is less than 9. You cannot do this if you have absolute value greater than. It doesn't work this way. This only works for absolute value less than. Then I asked you for the solution two ways. I wanted the number line graph of the solution set. So this is the number line graph of the solution set. And then I wanted the solution set written in interval notation. So these three things all mean the same thing. This is inequality notation, graph of the solution set, interval notation. Okay, then let's look at number 2. And we had, when is the absolute value of something greater than negative 2? So you will save yourself a lot of work if you will first stop for a moment and think about how often is the absolute value of something bigger than negative 2? Well, it's always bigger than negative 2 because absolute value of anything is greater than or equal to 0, which is greater than negative 2. So absolute value is always greater than 0, which is greater than negative 2. So if you're going to write all real numbers or no solution, you have to explain why. So in this case, you'd say all real numbers because of this reasoning. The absolute value is always positive or 0, and that kind of a number is always going to be bigger than negative 2, so any value of x will work. It doesn't matter what you pick for x. Okay, so then number 3 was absolute value of 2x minus 7 is less than negative 1. So we want to know, when is the absolute value of something smaller than negative 1? Well, that's never going to happen, right? There's no solution for this because absolute value is always greater than or equal to 0, so never smaller than negative 1. So these are the tricky ones that you have to be paying attention. You can't just plug and chug. Never again in math going forward should you ever plug and chug without thinking about it. You will use up lots of time doing things that you might not even need to do. So let's look at number 4. And that had some extra algebra steps. So let me get it copied down. 2 times the absolute value of x minus 4 minus 13 is greater than negative 7. So you need to isolate the absolute value. So you're going to need to add 13 and get 2 times the absolute value of x minus 4 is greater than 6. Then divide both sides by 2, get absolute value of x minus 4 is bigger than 3. So this is one of those ones we talked about in class where 4 is the middle of the interval, and then you go 3 one direction and get to 7, and 3 the other direction and get to 1. And then the absolute value part, remember, is a distance from 4, the middle of the interval. And we want the distance to be bigger than 3. So we want farther away than 3. Farther away than 3. So we want the tails. When you have absolute value greater than, you want the tails. When you have absolute value less than, that's like number 1, where you get a chunk of the number line. So then our interval notation, negative infinity to 1 with the big U for union, and 7 to infinity. And there you go. And you can write it as inequalities as x is less than 1 or x is greater than 7. And you need the word or there, because if you try to say and, that's the empty set, because those two pieces of the number line have no overlap. So let me know if you have any questions.